Yesterday, I was talking to you about the reality that this crisis that we are in could become a potential historic kingdom moment. Revivals are birthed in times of hardship and agony and pain more often than they're birthed in times of comfort and ease and prosperity. And never in my lifetime have I seen anything like this coronavirus crisis that we're in. I also mentioned to you yesterday, I think it could lead us to some economic hardship. Listen, that's not prophecy. I'm just observing the way the world works. My grandfather was a small businessman. And the reality of my grandfather's life was a lot of times he lived from month to month, and he talked to me about these things. He would get a job, he'd get paid, and then he was able to pay the people that worked for him and pay his own bills. But the reality is, if my grandfather were forced out of commission, out of business operations for months at a time, I don't think he could have survived. He would have been out of business. And when the ban came from meeting, the reality is my grandfather would not have been able to reopen because he wouldn't have had the finances to do it. And there's a lot of small business people that are going to be facing the same crisis currently under this current situation. I was just downtown recently talking to a business guy. He's a restaurant owner. And I asked him, is this crisis been killing you? He said to me, it's not been good. He goes, fortunately we still have some people coming in who are doing takeout orders. But he said, it's a good thing the government has allowed us not to pay our mortgage for the next 3 months. We don't have to pay taxes for the next 3 months. Listen, this guy is not going to be able to survive in his business unless this crisis comes to an end. If this crisis continues as it has been, there's going to be a lot of economic hardships that result. But again, I don't want you to be afraid, because I think this is an opportunity for us. I want to look at a passage that's very familiar to many of you in Matthew chapter 6. This is a passage in the Sermon on the Mount, and I want to read what Jesus says here. Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, about what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" It was funny, yesterday I was thinking about this passage, and I was thinking about this current crisis, the potential economic problems, and my cat came strolling by, and I sat on the floor with him and I pet him and he's purring. I got to tell you, he is not slightly even remotely fazed by the current economic potential crisis in front of us. He has absolute confidence that I'm going to provide his next meal. And Jesus is just looking at us going, listen, if this is how the animals survive in the midst of all this, can't you trust that your good Father who gave his Son for you will care for you, even if times get hard? But then he goes on and he ends the passage with these words. And I pick up in Matthew 6, verse 31. He says, "So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your Father, your heavenly Father, knows that you need them. But," Jesus says, "seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." What Jesus is saying to us in the midst of this crisis is you don't have to focus on the crisis. You don't have to focus on providing for yourself. You don't have to focus on what you're going to worry about. Instead, he said, make the kingdom your number one priority. Seek first the kingdom. You see, the problem is a lot of us, if we're honest, we've based a lot of our security in the comforts and the temporary world around us, in our jobs and in our paychecks, in our IRAs, in our cupboards. Even now, look at all the people in the midst of this running to the store and hoarding things because of fear. And he's saying, you don't have to do like them. Instead, he says, you can sink your roots deep into the eternal kingdom of your Father. In Hebrews chapter 12, it says the kingdoms of this world are all shakable, like a blanket full of dirt. You take it outside and you shake it off and all the dirt comes off. Everything in this world is temporary and shakable. But the next world, the kingdom that you're a citizen of, is eternal and unshakable. This is an opportunity for the church to purge from a lot of our earthly attachments and get deeply rooted in our heavenly citizenship and our eternal kingdom, so that we can become a beacon of light in the darkness, a voice of hope in the despair, an anchor of security in the storms of chaos. This is an opportunity for the church. Let's seize the moment.